incompetence full display. I'm talking about Trump and Zelensky. Let's go to the meeting.
This thing over with. You see the hatred he's got for Putin. It's very tough for me to make a deal with that kind of hate. He's got tremendous hatred. And I understand that, but I can tell you the other side isn't exactly in love with, him either. So it's not a question of alignment. I'm aligned with the world. You want me to be tough? I could be tougher than any human being you've ever seen. I'd be so tough. But you're never going to get a deal that way, so.
In 2019, I signed with him the deal. I signed with him, Macron and Merkel, we signed ceasefire. Ceasefire. All of them told me that he will never go. We signed him with gas contract. Yes, but after that, he broken this ceasefire. He killed our people and he didn't exchange prisoners. We signed the exchange of prisoners, but he didn't do it. What kind of diplomacy?
Right. Zelensky is simply being honest. And then he was called disrespectful and his gratefulness was questioned. Here it is.
You're right now not in a very good position. You've allowed yourself to be in a very bad position, and he happens to be right about it.
From the very beginning of the war.
You're not in a good position. You don't have the cards right now. With us, you start having cards. Right now, you're gambling with World War III. You're gambling with World War III. And what you're doing is very disrespectful to the country, this country, that's backed you far more than a lot of people said they should have.
Have you said thank you once? This entire meeting? No, in this entire meeting, have you said thank you?
Today.
You went to Pennsylvania and campaigned for the opposition in October. Offer some words of appreciation for the United States of America and the president who's trying to save your country.
You're buried there. Your people are dying. You're running low on soldiers. Listen, you're running low on soldiers. It would be a damn good thing. And then you tell us, I don't want a ceasefire. I don't want a ceasefire. I want to go and I want this. Look.
Mocking, misaligning facts intentionally, gaslighting, JD Vance, and you like Kamala Harris. This was their level of negotiation when they knew the cameras were on and the public was watching. Imagine what those conversations are like when it's actually private. Put it up full mass here. I want you to see this picture because I find it quite fascinating. Zelensky doesn't back down. Zelensky is not in a fetal position here. He's going toe to toe with these gentlemen, I will say. And the reality is the only person who's in embarrassment here is Trump and JD. JD, do you think you're the vice president, sir? Do you think Trump is the president? All right. From the moment he arrived at the White House, Zelensky was ridiculed for not wearing a suit. But see, the real president doesn't have to wear a suit. Here it is.
Second question.
My second question for President Zelensky.
No.
Why don't you wear a suit? Why don't you wear a suit? You're at the highest level in this country's office and you refuse to wear a suit. Just want to see if do you own a suit?
Yeah, problems.
A lot of Americans have problems with you not respecting.
I don't have such. I will wear a costume after this war will finish.
Okay.
Yes, maybe one. Maybe something like yours. Yes. Maybe something better. I don't know. We will see.
All right, now this guy, no suit at all. And it's interesting when, President Elon Musk comes to the office without a suit, with his child, who's hella rude, by the way, because Elon's raising him, and a baseball cap. Not one person, not one individual questions the actions of President Elon Musk. Speaking of Putin during the exchange, even as he shouted at the Ukrainian leader in the Oval Office, the president spoke of Mr. Putin as if they were friends, saying that the Russian leader has, quote, been through a lot with me in enduring the Russia hoax, referring to the investigation of Mr. Putin's clandestine efforts to help Mr. Trump win the 2016 election. The New York Times reports Mr. Trump threatened to abandon Ukraine altogether if Mr. Zelensky did not go along. After journalists left the Oval Office, Mr. Trump canceled the rest of the visit, including a planned joint news conference and signing ceremony for a deal on rare minerals. And U.S. officials told the Ukrainians to leave. Trump issued a statement after the meeting, quote, "We had a very meaningful meeting in the White House today. Much was learned that could never be understood without conversation under such fire and pressure. It's amazing what comes out through emotion. And I have determined that President Zelensky is not ready for peace if America is involved, because he feels our involvement gives him a big advantage in negotiations. I don't want advantage, I want peace." He disrespected the United States of America in its cherished Oval Office. He can come back when he is ready for peace. This is what happens when you stand up to a white male bigot. I mean, when you just stay flat-footed on your actual morals, when you have to bring your values to the table and you don't back down from them, this is the response that you will get. Now, Donald Trump is likely this way with anyone who disagrees with him. He seems to reserve, however, his most venomous attacks for those who carry black or brown skin. Now, the White House later sent out Senator Lindsey Graham, okay, Republican of South Carolina, and a close ally to Trump, to tell reporters that Mr. Zelensky should consider stepping down. Quote, "He either needs to resign and send somebody over that we can do business with, or he needs to change," Mr. Graham said on the White House driveway. Fox News was quick to actually criticize Zelensky for going as far as calling him sassy. Here it is.
If you were watching Outnumbered, you saw the live playback of the video.
And you were on Outnumbered.
I was indeed. I was the one lucky guy. Well, Zelensky was the one unlucky guy on Friday there. You know, usually, and this kind of stuff does happen between presidents and world leaders behind closed doors. And then afterwards, the readout is, well, the two world leaders had a frank discussion, and they are, you know, they're united in finding a solution. Well, we saw that this relationship right there between the three of them is fractured. And Mr. Zelensky, tone deaf, going in and fighting back, getting sassy with the president and the vice president.
Sassy.
He was sassy. He got some bad advice from somebody, but it certainly was not the White House. They said, Mr. Zelensky, show up, wear a suit.
Sassy, you say. You know what's happening right now? Zelensky's in a war zone, taking care of his people, defending for his life and the life of others. Trump is golfing, JD Vance is skiing. That's the reality of these world leaders. The contextualization of Zelensky being sassy when he is simply authentic is an interesting dynamic. Now, here's what we all should have agreed on. No matter what happened during that Oval Office meeting, no matter how you interpret it, no Democrats were involved in that chaos. Here it is.
Well, Secretary, you were sitting across from the president on Friday. Before we get to tariffs, I want to get your reaction to what went down. How was it in the room? And do you believe Democrats were egging on Zelensky to not say thank you, to stay tough and not sign that rare earth minerals deal?
No, so we were 40 minutes before the cameras came in and 45 minutes before the meltdown. And the fact was Zelensky never stopped asking for, you know, I will give no concessions. They've got to leave my land.
Did Democrats do this? Wait a minute. What Democrat? How were Democrats involved? What proof, evidence do you have that Zelensky was somehow coerced by Democrats? I got to say this. If Zelensky cannot be coerced by the current commander-in-chief, what makes you think Zelensky was coerced by a Democratic member of Congress? All right, here we go. So Western allies, they have rounded the allies. Yes, Zelensky. That's who they support, of course. Europe's leader and officials have been blindsided by staggering collapse in American support for Ukraine in the past weeks, after almost 3 years of ironclad backing by the previous administration of Joe Biden. Many still cannot understand why the U.S. President, Donald Trump, has turned so furiously on Zelensky and conceded key concessions to Putin before even starting talks. Zelensky has spoken to the French President, Emmanuel Macron, and to the European Council President, Costa, following his scathing exchange with Trump at the White House. According to the Ukrainian source, the knowledge of the situation, quote, there is an aggressor, which is Russia, and an attacked people, which is Ukraine, the French president said. Quote, nobody wants peace more than the Ukrainians do, wrote German Chancellor Olaf Scholz on X. Therefore, we are working on a common path to a lasting and just peace. Ukraine can rely on Germany and on Europe. As of December 2024, in a post on social media, the Ukrainian president said 370,000 injuries have been reported, though this figure included soldiers who had been hurt more than once, and some of the injuries were said to be minor. He also claimed that 198,000 Russian soldiers had been killed and a further 550,000 wounded. Now, if you remember when this war first started, all of the pontificators said that it would be a quick war, that it would be open and shut, it would be cause and effect, that there would be no way that the Ukrainians would be able to defend themselves against the mighty, mighty power of the Russians. Well, here we are, 2025. Zelensky is flying to America and going back to his country, defending and commanding for his people. Russia is still at war. Hell of a thing. Jackson, a lot of twists and turns. What say you?
I mean, this whole MAGA Trump era it's beyond words, because they act like they're anti-war. The idea that Trump is anti-war has always been a joke. First and foremost, the United States is always at war. So, there were no new wars under him. Well, he didn't take us out of Afghanistan. He increased drone strikes by over 400%. He assassinated one of the leaders in Iran. So that's just isn't true. And then, Russia traditionally is not an ally of the United States. After World War II, the whole Cold War era, and communism is extreme left-wing ideology. It's really not in line with what Republicans are supposed to stand for with small government. Right. So that whole debacle in the White House was just a show for MAGA to be like, oh yeah, Trump really talked to him. Look at our big daddy being strong. That's all that was. I mean, when I saw it, it's not funny. Like a lot of the stuff Trump does, you can laugh at it because it's so silly, but you look at that and it's like, man, this dude is really putting all of us in danger, because there's no telling what these people are gonna do. So it's like, it's cool to be like that with Zelensky, but then Donald Trump, he can ride Netanyahu all he wants. He can tweet out videos of them, we're gonna take over Gaza, do ethnic cleansing. Look at me and my buddy Netanyahu on the beach. We're just, and they have nothing to say about that. Like, it really doesn't matter what Donald Trump does. There's going to be that 30% of this country that just goes along with him no matter what. And that's a real issue, because a lot of his supporters are younger, millennial, Gen Z. There are a big chunk of them, and they're not necessarily going to lose Social Security or Medicaid because they're not on it. So a lot of the damage that the Trump administration will do to the administrative state and things like our social security programs, a lot of these Gen Z Trump supporters, it makes no difference to them. So this whole blanket of stupidity that we're dealing with, we're going to have to keep dealing with it for years.
Yeah, and you're right. You cannot argue that a Donald Trump is anti-war when he is pro-Netanyahu and pro-Putin and supporting the efforts of both of these murderous regimes.